game? Let's find out.
Okay, there it is. That's how you make a Wayne's World game. Just have Garth running around with a laser gun shooting stuff. That's real creative.
Not!
Look at this madness. Walking drums, floating hi-hats. Get it? Because Garth plays drums, he goes into drum world. What kind of idea is that? The graphics make me want to hurl. It's as bland as a kindergarten coloring book. Orange walls, purple floors. Garth is almost completely white, like they didn't have time to color him in. This looks terrible.
It certainly does suck.
The music, I shit you not, is just a 2-second loop being repeated over and over.
It's giving me a headache.
The layout is a joke. Even in the most linear side scrolls, you still have to figure out which is the best way to maneuver. Like, should I go up on this platform or should I go underneath? But here, you can just stay on the ground and keep walking right. There's zero strategy involved.
You know I know nothing about video games. I found what you just said Ripley.
The next level is Wayne, but this is where the game gets incredibly difficult. Because Wayne can't do anything other than this awkward kick. Of course, Wayne is well known for his martial arts. You can't kill anything unless it's right next to you. Most of the time, you get killed first. And then you go back to the Garth stage. That's it. You die once, you start over.
We'll try harder, okay? Just give us a second chance.
There's a bonus stage at a donut shop, but it looks more like an eyeball factory. You're just going around collecting donuts. But I can never figure out how to get the donuts in the middle. And whenever you jump down, you hurt yourself. Everything just sucks. I like how in one of the cutscenes, well, I use the term cutscene very loosely, but anyway, they're talking about going to the bands playing at the gasworks, and they mention the lousy Beatles. In the movie, it was the shitty Beatles. It's a shame they can't use the word shitty in the Nintendo game, because shitty
Perhaps
is the
we'd
best
rather
word
test
to describe
yourselves
the
against a
game.
more
The
formidable
enemies are
opponent.
the most cliche you can possibly think of. When would Wayne and Garth ever be fighting spiders and ninjas? Who cares, right? As long as the game says Wayne's World, kids will want it.
Kids no dick.
There's clearly no thought process going on here. Just make a game based on popular
Come midnight,
beliefs and shit
let's
in the
disperse
store.
this petty rap.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
Talk about some 8-bit frustration right here. I hate this kick. You have to time it perfectly. What are these things anyway? Just floating TV screens? Not floating TVs, but floating TV screens. Jeez, Wayne is just completely worthless.
I'm just gonna stay here and lick the cat's butt.
Oh, look what's gonna happen. I'm just gonna jump over there and the spider's gonna kill me.
It was inevitable.
What the hell with this game? I can't say I expected it to be good, but this is just the maximum catastrophe of ass. Take it away, Garth.
You're not gonna believe this, but there's another one on the Super Nintendo.
I was not aware of that.
The only difference is that we're going from 8-bit vomit to 16-bit vomit. One is just as bad as the other, but without the original gag reflex one gets from eating dog shit that's been blended with goat piss.
Ah, yes. It's a lot like Star Trek: The Next Generation. In many ways, it's superior, but will never be as recognized as the original.
It starts with Wayne and Garth doing the top 10 list of worst video games. The irony is stunning. In this game, Wayne's trying to rescue Garth, which is already a disappointment not to be able to play as both of them. That's like Bill and Ted with just Bill, or Beavis and Butthead with just Beavis. Wayne looks like a bobblehead. Your weapon is a guitar that shoots sonic booms, and the environment is once again constructed from different pieces of musical equipment. Instruments of all kinds, bagpipes, and hands that shoot lightning. I think by now they could have come up with a more original idea.
Yeah, the monkeys might fly out of my butt.
The voices are redundant. Every time Wayne gets an item, he says excellent. And every time he gets hit, he says not. That doesn't make any sense. What is he saying not to? He Usually the word not follows a sarcastic statement. It's like explaining it to Borat.
This suit is not black. No, not has to be black. Oh, this suit is black.
But whether or not these voices are used in the right context, it gets incredibly aggravating to have to hear the same thing over and over again. Maybe it would have been cute to hear it one time, but who thought it was a good idea to program it like this? Are they mental?
Get the net!
The controls are awful. You can't shoot while ducking. You can accidentally jump up to a higher platform, and when you try to land on things, you have to be at the right angle or else you fall through. After a little bit of time, you start to get used to it, as if your brain begins to flick the shit switch and adapt to its bad controls.
It's like a new pair of underwear. You know? At first it's constrictive, but after a while it becomes a part of you.
But even after I've overcome the crappy learning curve, still I can't pass the first level. Talk about non-linear. This level is a maze. I can't even figure out where I'm supposed to go, let alone survive.
We're not worthy! Well, I can't beat the first level, so I'm done with this game. Well, there is a code.
I did not realize that. Russell, did you realize that?
No, I did not realize that.
So we might as well put in the code and take a peek at the rest of the game.
Game on! Yeah, game on!
The second stage is at the diner. Apparently either Wayne got shrunk down in size, or everything is giant. This doesn't have anything to do with Wayne's World. Did they think they were making a game of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? And everything's alive. Coffee cups, donut men. What's going on here?
Hey, Mr. Donut Head Man, who's trying to kill you? I don't know, but you better not. Oh, that's not good. I'm not happy. Oh, no!
And could you guess the boss in this level? Would you expect anything different than a giant donut? The music in this stage is real familiar. Is this supposed to be Foxy Lady? It sounds kind of like it. Maybe they couldn't get the rights.
Denied!
It also has the all-time worst butchering of Bohemian Rhapsody. Stage 3 is the Gasworks. Remember Wayne's annoying ex-girlfriend? Well, she makes an appearance in this game. Several.
Hi, Wayne.
What, did she find a way to clone herself? What kind of bar is this? What kind of bar would put their arcade machines up on ledges where no normal person could reach? What bar would have fire shooting out of the floor? The main enemies you face are laser-shooting disco balls. That's original. My favorite are the darts. It's like people are throwing darts and you're getting in the way. You wouldn't believe the boss. Seriously, take a guess who the boss is. A giant disco ball? No. A giant pinball machine? No. Some generic bar guy? No. The answer is Elvis.
Jelly donut. Jelly donut. Jelly donut.
Elvis is in a Wayne's World game.
Thank you very much.
Isn't that weird?
That's weird, man.
Could it be any more out of place? Doesn't Wayne's World exist in the 90s? What is Elvis doing there? Does he have to talk so damn much?
Thank you very much.
The last level is a neighborhood that's been sucked into purgatory. I guess. I'm just making that up. It's a bunch of homes floating in the clouds. How else would you describe it? The layout still finds ways to throw you off. What's blocking me? A pole that's in the foreground? Shouldn't I be able to walk behind it?
I'm being shit on. That's all, shit on.
There's a deranged hockey player who doesn't even look like a human being. But what is a human being according to this game? Someone with a bobblehead? Or someone who looks like some kind of cartoon monster? The last boss of the game. Are you ready for this? A gelatinous cube that swallows darts. Now this is funny because as random as it is, this cube was actually mentioned
unannounced visitors, preparations must be made.
Sis, it's been bothering me for a while, but have you seen our Legion symbol?
No.
Yeah?
What about it?
It's a scorpion. The other legions have cute things like birds or dogs. We have a scorpion. We're the Emperor's Guard!
I'm sure scorpions represent something noble or nice, right? I mean, they kill pests. They're quiet. And they sometimes hide around walls. Well,
According to the United States Centers for Disease Control, approximately half of all Americans will eat a sandwich in a given day, and the most common kinds of sandwiches include cold cuts. The website Business Wire notes that the global cold cut industry is worth some $72 billion, and the website Mashable explains that in 2016, Americans spent some $500 million just on bologna products. The history of bologna combines a distant past with modern inventions and economic trends and immigration and government programs, all to come to the bologna and American cheese on white bread with mayonnaise staple that the USA Today describes as a nutritionally dubious midday meal for millions of American students. You might think that I'm full of baloney, but I think that the history of the strange, slimy, pink cold cut deserves to be remembered.
You might think that cold cuts, those cold slices of cooked and processed, often mystery meats, would be a rather new invention. However, the concept is quite ancient, as people have been developing techniques for preserving food since prehistory. There is a unique challenge in determining exactly when various processes for meat preservation started. There's a 2019 study entitled Meat Outside the Freezer: Drying, Smoking, Salting, and Sealing Meat in Fat at an Epipaleolithic Megasite in Eastern Jordan, published in the journal Anthropological Archaeology, explains. The main problem lies with the fact that storage generally involves perishable food placed in perishable containers, for animal foods at least, or utilizes structures which are often scattered over the landscape, away from excavated sites where archaeologists stand a chance of finding them. Still, using contextual clues at an archaeological site in Jordan, the authors conclude that meat was being preserved through drying in the late Pleistocene, around 20,000 years ago, and were undoubtedly a common practice resulting from shared ecological knowledge during the Epipaleolithic and likely earlier.
Thus, a version of the deli tray might have been included in the Stone Age diet.
Drying might not have been the first method of preserving meat. A 2019 article published in Science Advances Online suggests that large leg bones of deer were kept in order to preserve the marrow inside for consumption in times of need. The research from a cave in Israel used during the Pleistocene suggests that this form of meat preservation might date back some 200,000 years. Much of the food that we call cold cuts today is cured using chemicals or salts, such as potassium or sodium nitrates. Again, you might think that this is a relatively modern process, but an article in the food science magazine Earthworm Express, considering the preservation of mummies, concludes that salt curing of meat was well known as much as 7,000 years ago, where it was in all likelihood discovered in many other regions around the world where these salts naturally occur. The author suggests that the process might have come to Europe from China along the Silk Road. Preserved meats, many very similar to the ones still eaten today, were well known in ancient civilizations. The blog on the webpage of the Atlanta restaurant Campania explains that the concept of deli meats, as we think of them today, goes back to around 500 BC with the Etruscan and Roman populations. In fact, there are some references to cold-cut meats even in the book The Odyssey and in the medicinal recipes of Hippocrates.
Various Roman recipes for curing and preserving meat, usually ham and usually done with salt, still exist today. In fact, the Italian word salume, which refers to a number of different kinds of cured meats, is derived from the Latin root sal, meaning salt.
One type of meat apparently known in ancient Rome was pork ground with a mortar. The Chicago Tribune noted in 1990, the Museo Civico in Bologna has 2 carved Roman stelae, or stone tablets, in its collection. Found at a nearby Roman burial site, they depict scenes of pig husbandry, including a worker pounding meat in a mortar. Pork ground by mortar, usually salt cured and with pork fat added, is called mortadella. The Tribune continues. Mortadella takes its name from the morteo, or mortar, used for breaking down pork meat, which is called mortea della carne de maiale. Shortened, it becomes mortadella. Mortadella is particularly connected to northern Italy in the region surrounding the ancient city of Bologna, where, the Tribune notes, by the year 1000, the pig had such an importance in this region that forests were measured not in surface area, but in the number of pigs they could support. A January 2016 edition of Vice News describes the importance of the production of mortadella in the city of Bologna. In the Middle Ages, roughly 10,000 people, a quarter of the city's population, were involved in its production at around 280 salmieri. The industry was so important that in 1661, the Cardinal Girolamo Farnese published a notice, the Notice about the Preparation of Mortadella and Salami, issuing a legal definition of processed meat, including standardization for its production. In the January 2021 issue of USA Today notes that a framed decree from l'Arts de Salaroli, a sort of governing body made up of artisan charcuterie makers, dating all the way back to 1250, on the wall of Bologna's Simone Laboratorio, roughly translates to, if you make fake mortadella without the approval of the Salaroli, your body will be stretched on the rack 3 times, you will be fined 200 gold coins, and all the food you make will be destroyed. As the mortar and pestle implies, mortadella is finely ground. The website The Food Wonder explains that traditionally mortadella would have been spiced with nutmeg, cloves, peppercorns, cinnamon, white wine, sugar, or salt. The Chicago Tribune provides a description of the oldest known mortadella recipe from a 1557 cookbook. The pork should be proportion of fat to lean according to the taste of the maker. Pound everything well in the mortar, then weigh it, and for every 25 pounds of meat, throw in 11 ounces of salt 2 or 3 times, along with the same amount of crushed pepper. Mix everything together until it's very smooth, and then add a glass of red wine and let it sit for 2 or 3 days. Bologna mortadella was famous enough that the Tribune notes that it was shipped to France, England, and other European countries. One Dominican priest said that he had sampled its delights as far away as America.
So how did this famous Italian delicacy wind up on white bread with mayonnaise in American lunchboxes?
Like much of American cuisine, bologna sandwiches came from immigration, but not the way you might think. USA Today explains that although Italy sent some 4 million immigrants to U.S. shores between 1880 and 1924, these folks weren't actually the link connecting Bologna, Italy with bologna sandwiches. Instead, that credit goes to waves of German immigrants who settled in large swaths of the Midwest, southeastern Canada, and especially Pennsylvania. The website Eater.com notes Bologna's arrival in North America is unclear, but it generally is associated with German immigration. Some of the strongest Bologna traditions hail from regions where German immigrants settled, like the Midwest, Appalachia, and Pennsylvania. Bologna is popular in the South and parts of Canada, too, according to the Vancouver Sun. 95% of Canadian bologna is consumed in Atlantic Canada, half of that in Newfoundland. Despite its Italian origins, it was these German immigrants whose own culinary history included sausage making who realized the potential market in America. USA Today concludes the German mortadella eaters of Europe were confronted with the curious opportunity to become German mortadella manufacturers once they settled in their new North American homes. Nobody else was making the stuff here at the time, so someone had to do it if anyone was going to get the chance to enjoy it. In fact, one German in particular helped to popularize the product. The website History Daily explains, after moving to the U.S. with his family at age 14, Oscar Ferdinand Meyer took an apprenticeship with a butcher and worked for the next 6 years in Chicago's meatpacking industry. Eventually, he leased his own meat market with his brothers and, using the traditional sausage-making techniques they brought with them from Europe, sold their bologna to Chicago's growing German-American population with tremendous success. By the 1920s, the Oscar Mayer Sausage Company had brought bologna mainstream. However, USA Today notes that the new product deviated from traditional mortadella. These new German butchers of Pennsylvania both expanded and diluted the original heritage product. Producing was once a chiefly pork, lard, and pistachio-based product from the state's ample wild turkey populations, along with chicken and beef and pork when it was accessible. But there was more involved in making the meat mainstream. For one, the pace of business changed. A November 1922 issue of the New York Times entitled Sandwiches Flourishing interviewed the manager of a new chain of sandwich buffets. Once he was a manager of a large hotel where men came in leisurely, ordered lavishly, and ate copiously. That day is gone, he is convinced. The new pace of the city's lunching was facilitated by new technology. New York Times goes on. The development has brought with it all the machinery of sandwich making, now becoming as common a feature at restaurant windows as the hot cake steam plate New Yorkers know so well. There is a machine that slices the loaves, and another that slices the meat. The last of this, at the press of a button, cuts and slices ham, tongue, beef, and so on without touch with human hands. Sandwich making is thus facilitated, and sandwiches themselves have changed not only in status, but also in stature and girth. But even more than the fast pace of the Roaring '20s, the rising popularity of bologna was related to what came next. The buzzy new fad of slapping some meat and cheese onto sliced bread, writes USA Today, had arrived just in time for the Great Depression. It continues. American bologna, cheap to produce in its infinitely adaptable forms, transitioned from a Pennsylvania immigrant community lunchtime meal for farmers and factory workers to what much of the country was eating for dinner several nights a week. In the 1940s, the growth of refrigeration meant refrigerated sections in grocery stores and a new demand for convenient food. And the advent of plastic packaging helped to make bologna a perfect fit for housewives seeking convenience to liberate themselves from household chores. Bologna sandwiches started to become more common in the lunchboxes children took to school. Then Mashable notes, in 1946, President Truman signed the National School Lunch Act, which established the National School Lunch Program. The National School Lunch Program provides low-cost or free lunches to children each school day. And because bologna is a low-cost food, it ended up on a lot of lunch trays and in a lot of lunch bags. Of course, there are mixed opinions about those sandwiches, but the meat does have an appeal to the taste of children. Mashable opines. Growing up, you had a few choices of meats that your parents would pack in your lunchbox. A tuna sandwich, which was the worst. A plain American cheese sandwich, also the worst. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich, just plain boring. Or if you were blessed that day, you dig in your brown paper sack or your Evel Knievel lunchbox, and you discover a bologna and American cheese sandwich. And life was good. Others, however, might have thought differently, as illustrated by another trend noted by USA Today. In the 1980s, bologna was being served in prisons across the United States in such abundance that many prisoners had no choice but to eat it for all 3 meals a day. About 35 years later, it's still being served in some jails twice a day. But now you're probably wondering, why do we call it bologna and not bologna? While the German immigrants were making mortadella, in America they simply called it bologna, after its Italian origin. How the pronunciation changed is a matter of some dispute. Linguist Mark Lieberman, in his blog Language Log, notes that bologna has essentially 3 definitions, one being the type of sausage, one being the Italian city, and one meaning nonsense. Although all generally spelled the same, they can be pronounced bologna or bologna. Further, he notes, the dictionaries agree that these 2 orthographic words have 3 senses between them, with sausage being shared, you can call the sausage bologna or bologna, and the other 2 not. Bologna isn't an Italian city, and bologna isn't nonsense. How did this happen? A 2021 article in the HuffPost, appropriately written by lifestyle reporter Caroline Bologna, suggests various theories, most around the idea that Americans simply pronounced it wrong, possibly by misapplying the Italian tendency to end words with IA, like Italia, thus making it, instead of Bologna, Bologna, or because they wanted to create a word that just sounds funny. The connection between the sausage and the nonsense word is pretty straightforward, given that we don't know quite what is in a sausage. And then the term began to be used more generally. By the 1920s, for example, sports writers referred to big, clumsy boxers as balonies, due to, the HuffPost explains, whatever connection they were making to the sausage, whether it was that they had sausage for brains or that they kind of looked like big sausages. It served its purpose as a funny-sounding word. In America, the sausage is often now spelled B-A-L-O-N-E-Y, and while either spelling B-A-L-O-N-E-Y or B-O-L-O-G-N-A is considered proper for the sausage, linguists agree that the spelling B-A-L-O-N-E-Y should be used to mean nonsense. Bologna, who admitted that her name resulted in teasing as a child, concludes, so depending on how you look at it, the way we pronounce or spell Bologna is a bunch of baloney. I'm more inclined to believe the pronunciation is the problem, though I am, of course, biased. At least I can say that thanks to Oscar Mayer, people know how to spell my last name, even if they don't know how to say it.
Today, mortadella is still an important and popular food in Bologna, where the residents would likely be disgusted with the slimy, pink, packaged doppelganger that we eat here in the United States.
The most obvious difference between the two is that mortadella uses chunks of lard, giving a marbled appearance, and often includes things like pistachio or olives, while bologna is generally ground into a consistent paste.
Each year, the town of Yale, Michigan hosts a bologna festival, which according to its website attracts some 20,000 bologna-starved partygoers, and where, among other things, they crown a bologna king and queen. The festival in 2022 is to be held July 29th to 31st, so there still might be time if you want to make plans to attend. American adults seem to have mixed feelings about their childhood food. For some, it seems to be a horrible memory, but others, well, they find it a nostalgic treat. I like my bologna with mustard. And that nostalgia, according to Mashable, has led to a new trend where many fine restaurants are now including fancy bologna sandwiches on the menu, and many localities are developing their own kinds of artisan bolognas. And so the food that once fed the Romans looks like it will continue to fill lunchboxes well into the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The History Guy. Check out our community on thehistoryguideguild.locals.com, our webpage at thehistoryguy.com, and our merchandise at teespring.com, or book a special message from The History Guy on Cameo. And if you'd like more episodes of Forgotten History, all you have to do is subscribe.
Call me basic.
You're basic.
But I love ketchup. I mean, I wouldn't put it on a steak because I'm not a psycho, but really, French fries are just a socially acceptable way for me to get ketchup to my mouth. But would I feel the same way if I was eating ketchup 250 years ago? Like with this 1787 recipe for white ketchup from England. Who knows? But thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring my attempt to make it as I explore the history of ketchup, this time on Tasting History. So, before we get started, I have an announcement, and it is a big one, so you're going to want to write this down. Next spring, I am publishing the long-awaited, much-anticipated Tasting History Cookbook. Ta-da! What a lovely cover! And it's actually already available for pre-order online and will be coming out on April 25th, 2023. It has some of the best recipes from the show, from Melos Zomos to Parmesan ice cream, and there will be new recipes that I haven't done here on the show yet. So I will put links in the description to where you can buy that, pretty much everywhere that you can buy books, and I will make sure to keep you updated as we get closer to the release date. But for now, let us focus on ketchup. Or is it catsup?
Ketchup. 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 Ketchup.
Now, as the debate over the spelling of ketchup rages on, there is one debate that is settled, and that is that ketchup has tomatoes, right? Well, maybe today, but not in the past. Heck, it wasn't even always red. And this is just such a recipe for one of those off-colored ketchups. It comes from the 6th edition of The Lady's Assistant for Regulating and Supplying the Table by Mrs. Charlotte Mason from 1787. White ketchup. Take 1 quart of white wine, 1 pint of elder vinegar, and 1 quart of water. half a pound of anchovies with their pickle, half a pound of horseradish scraped, 1 ounce of shallots bruised, 1 ounce of white pepper bruised, 1 ounce of mace, 1/4 of an ounce of nutmegs cut in quarters. Boil all together till half is consumed, then strain it off. When it is cold, bottle it for use. It is proper for any white sauce or to put into melted butter. A considerably well-written recipe, considering it's from the 18th century, but it doesn't hold a candle to the very easy-to-follow recipes from today's sponsor, HelloFresh. So recently, with the move and everything, I have been working overtime to just try to catch up on videos. And so after a full day of editing or writing or whatever I've been doing, the last thing that I want to do is go grocery shopping and even pick out what's for dinner. HelloFresh to the rescue. They deliver full meals to my door in sustainable packaging, so there is no shopping to be done. And all of the ingredients are pre-portioned, so I don't have to fuss with a bunch of prep work. And with over 55 weekly options, I can always find something I love. And they have meals for everyone: pescatarian, vegetarian, fit and wholesome. And right now they have some wonderful, light, summery dishes, like this Italian chicken over lemony spaghetti. With fresh zucchini and chili flakes, the meal was filling but light, and it made for the perfect summer pasta dish. So go to HelloFresh.com and use code TastingHistory16 for up to 16 free meals plus 3 surprise gifts. That's TastingHistory16 at HelloFresh.com. Now for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 quart or 1 liter of white wine, 2 cups or 475 milliliters of elderflower vinegar. That is the one thing that is not easy to find, but you can get it online. I'll put a link to where I got mine, but you can also make your own if you have fresh elderflowers. You just fill up a jar and then put some white wine vinegar in it, and in about 2 weeks, you'll have elderflower vinegar. 1 quart or 1 liter of water, a half pound or 225 grams of anchovies, and these need to be salted or brined anchovies and not anchovies in oil, because you actually need that salt, or what she calls the pickle, and it's a lot of salt. A half pound or 225 grams of horseradish, 1 ounce or 28 grams of shallots, 1 ounce or 28 grams of whole white pepper, 1 ounce or 28 grams of whole mace. By the way, that is a lot of mace. I use that amount of mace in like 20 recipes of anything else. So this has now become one of the most expensive dishes that I've ever made, simply based on some of these ingredients. They're nuts. And a 1/4 ounce or 7 grams of nutmeg cut into quarters. And that's a lot easier said than done, because quartering a nutmeg can be a tricky business because it's round, so just be very, very careful. Now first we need to bruise our shallots and white pepper. And the shallots, very clear, you just kind of mash them a little bit, but don't like grind them up. The white pepper is a little different, because I've never heard that term bruise associated with like a hard peppercorn. So I'm going to assume it's the same thing. She wants us to grind it, but not into a powder, which makes sense, because later on we're going to strain things, so that's what we're gonna do. Then take a large pot and add the anchovies, horseradish, shallots, pepper, mace, and nutmeg. Then pour in the white wine, the elderflower vinegar, and the water, and give everything a good stir. Then set it over high heat and bring it to a boil. So yeah, elephant in the room, this white ketchup ain't white. I'm thinking that the name either comes from the very many white ingredients that we put in, like the horseradish, the white wine, the elderflower, and the white pepper. Or it's because she says to add it to a white sauce. And so that's actually what I'm going to do at the very end. I'm going to mix it into some bechamel, and I've already made this on the channel, so I'll put a link in the description to where I made that. But first, this needs to finish boiling. And this pot of boiling anchovies and other stuff put me in mind of one of my very first videos, and that was Quick Garum. And when I made that video, I was living in a little apartment and had a bunch of neighbors, so I couldn't make fermented fish sauce, which is how garum is supposed to be made. But now I have a backyard, so I do plan on making actual fermented garum. The interesting thing is, this recipe for the boiling fish that reminds me of the Quick Garum makes sense, because it turns out ketchup got its start as fermented fish sauce. Now, while today's recipe put me in mind of garum, the ancient Roman fermented fish sauce, the fermented fish sauce that ketchup descends from comes from much further east, from Southeast Asia, where they still use a lot of fermented fish sauce. The oldest recipe comes from the Qi Mi Miao Shou from around 544, and it tells of a Han emperor who chased these barbarians all the way to the sea. And when he got there, he smelled this interesting and very pungent aroma. He asked his emissary to go figure out what this was, and when the emissary came back, he said, "It is simply a fermented paste made from fish entrails. Take the intestine, stomach, and bladder of the yellow fish, shark, and mullet, and wash them well. Mix them with a moderate amount of salt and place them in a jar. Seal tightly and incubate in the sun. It will be ready in 20 days in summer, 50 days in spring or fall, and 100 days in winter." Later, this type of fish sauce would proliferate throughout southern China, Vietnam, Malaysia, and down to Indonesia. And the word to describe it kind of changed from language to language. One was kachap in an old dialect of Thai, or kicap in Malay. And at the time, these could refer to several types of soy sauce, some of which were made with fermented fish. Now, Dutch traders seemed to enjoy it and began shipping it back to Europe. And then in the late 17th century, British traders came into contact with the sauce as well. And by 1711, in an account of the trade in India, the British trader Charles Lockyer said that soy comes in tubs from Japan, and the best ketchup from Tonkin. Yet good of both sorts are made and sold very cheap in China. And soon after, versions of ketchup began appearing in recipes in many English cookbooks. The problem was, by that time, nobody really knew what was in the original sauce. And the dictionaries of the time didn't help at all because they gave definitions such as a high East India sauce. That being the entire definition from a slang dictionary from 1698. And if you are looking for a bit of a diversion later on, might I suggest thumbing through a new dictionary of the terms ancient and modern of the Canting Crew. It was supposedly written to catalog the words that were being used at the time by London's more unsavory population. And it claims it's useful for all sorts of people, especially foreigners, to secure their money and preserve their lives. It's bawdy and it's hilarious, at least to a modern reader, so I will put a link in the description to where you can read that online. But I digress. Now, with such a vague description for ketchup, it kind of left the recipe writers of England at a loss. And so they were forced to start figuring out what this sauce might be. And so lots of different recipes for both ketchup and soy sauce start to pop up, none of which have any soy in them, and I don't think any of which are fermented. While some still do feature fish, others are as diverse as walnut ketchup, a favorite of Jane Austen, pudding ketchup, which was more of a sweet and spiced brandy, oyster ketchup, pickled mango, orange juice, onions, mussels, lobster, grapes, cranberries, cucumber, apples, liver, and rum, just to name a few. There was even one recipe which called for a gallon of strong stale beer to be added with the anchovies, ginger, shallots, and mushrooms. And mushrooms are actually what became the dominant ketchup of the 18th and early 19th century. Much of those early mushroom ketchups were actually likened to soy sauce, at least in its consistency. And sometimes it was actually called mushroom soy, and then sometimes it would be mushroom ketchup. They used the term interchangeably, neither of which had any soy. But one reason that mushroom ketchup became so popular was that it kept for a very long time. One 18th century writer claimed that he had a bottle of this sort of ketchup that has been opened and set by for above a year, that has not received the least damage. And it seems that mushroom ketchup was the last type of ketchup that was okay to put on steak, because in William Kitchener's The Cook's Oracle, he begins the chapter on broiling with a poem that ends, "And for skill in such cookery your credit will fetch up, if your broils are well seasoned with good mushroom ketchup." And just like the recipe today, it's not meant to be used as a condiment, but more as an ingredient to help flavor sauces or gravy or stock. Kitchener also includes one of my favorite puns about ketchup ever. He says that those who are for a superlative ketchup will continue the boiling till the mushroom juice is reduced to half the quantity. It may then be called double ketchup or dog sup. Hilarious! And to make this wonderful pun, he has to change the way that he's spelled ketchup all the rest of the way through the cookbook. But it seems that that's okay because I found over a dozen ways to spell ketchup in the 18th and 19th century. Though by 1831, that number had reduced to 3: ketchup, catsup, or ketchup. These 3 words indicate a sauce of which the name can be pronounced by everybody, but spelled by nobody. In this book, the domestic chemist says that true ketchup is only made with either mushrooms or walnuts. So, by 1831, the fish ketchup, the original ketchup, is now a false ketchup, as are all of those other types of ketchup, including the tomato. Now, the first tomato ketchup recipes appear shortly after 1800, and the first published recipe comes from 1812 by horticulturalist James Mees, who prefers to call tomatoes love apples. But his recipe, which had brandy and spices, was much more like a tomato sauce than anything that we would recognize as ketchup, and it didn't really take off. See, tomatoes were still coming into their own after centuries of Americans and Northern Europeans thinking that they were poisonous, something I go into detail about in my video on tomatoes. And the reputation of the tomato was a little tarnished in those first ketchup recipes because it was made in a copper pot typically, and the acidic tomato would have a chemical reaction with the copper that would become ever so slightly poisonous. Strike one. Strike two came in the form of tomato ketchup's really short shelf life. Other ketchups could last years on the shelf after bottling, but tomato ketchup could last maybe months before mold and yeast began to grow. Not a bad thing if you're making it at home and you're going to eat it in a few days, but around 1837 they started commercially producing tomato ketchup, bottling it, and putting it on store shelves. So it's a bad thing when your product goes bad after a couple months, and even a worse thing when, to preserve it, you use benzoic and salicylic acid or even coal tar to help the color turn red. And in 1863, prominent food writer Pierre Bloch cautioned people to beware what is sold under the name of ketchups. Many cases of debility and consumption come from eating such stuff. And another writer claimed that the tomato ketchup sold in stores was poor stuff made of dubious ingredients and the fruitful source of indigestion and other disorders of the stomach. And so bottled tomato ketchup earned a reputation for being filthy, decomposed, and putrid vegetable substances. Strike three. But just when you thought tomato ketchup was out, and then a hero comes along. And that hero was Henry J. Heinz. Actually, he was not the only one to do this. There were several people working on the problem. He's just the most famous. And he's really not a hero, but he was very, very good at marketing. Now, Heinz actually got his start in the exciting world of horseradish, which, using his mother's own recipe, he bottled and sold. What made him different was that he bottled it in clear glass, and so he could tell his customers, look, I'm using clear glass, hence I have nothing to hide. His pitch worked, and the business called Heinz & Noble took off, and they started selling other things, including pickles and sauerkraut, incurring a lot of debt along the way, which was a bad thing when the panic of 1873 set in and all the creditors wanted their money back. Heinz & Noble went bust, but Heinz was not deterred. It took him a few years to get back up on his feet, but he did, and this time it was with his brother and his cousin, and they established the F&J Heinz Company. They brought back many of the old products, but also added tomato ketchup to the roster. And a product with such a tarnished reputation as tomato ketchup really benefited from his whole, look, it's in a clear bottle so we have nothing to hide shtick. And it was just a shtick, because actually, it had more apples than tomatoes in it, and it included all of those preservatives that the other guy's ketchup did. And it wasn't until an executive from Heinz attended the Pure Food and Drug Congress of 1904 that the company saw the writing on the wall and decided that they would be the first ones to get rid of all the preservatives. G.F. Mason, the head of the Heinz Research Laboratory, spent a long time trying to figure out a way to make a preservative-free ketchup that would hold, and with mixed results. But it had to happen, so eventually they released one that boasted, we do not use any benzoate of soda, any drug, any chemical, or any coloring or adulterant of any kind. Heinz new ketchup, even though it was quite a bit more expensive than any of his competitors, sold like gangbusters. And it led Heinz to become a strong proponent of the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. They also changed up the recipe to include a lot more sugar, vinegar, and salt, partly to help it stay preserved for longer, and it also made it a lot thicker, and it gave us the flavor that we are acquainted with today when we say ketchup. Now, supposedly, the ketchup exiting a classic glass Heinz bottle comes out at 0.028 miles per hour. Oh, and that 57 that they use, the Heinz 57 varieties, yeah, it doesn't mean anything. See, he'd seen an advertisement for shoes, and they said, we have 21 styles, and he thought that that was catchy, just having a number associated with it, so he decided, I'll do the same thing, and put 57 varieties, even though they had 57 varieties of nothing. It was just really good marketing. And really, that's what Heinz was good at, was the marketing. It was the clear bottle, the 57. And of course, changing his spelling from catsup to ketchup with a K, which at the time was a little less common, so he thought it would make it stand out. And clearly it did, because now Heinz ketchup is the most popular ketchup in the world. And most people today spell ketchup with a K, as does the actual recipe that we're making today from 1787 for white ketchup, which is also really good marketing because the ketchup is not white. But regardless, once it's boiled down by half, strain it and let the liquid cool completely before putting it into a bottle. Now again, just as you would typically drink soy sauce by itself, you would put it into something as an ingredient to help with the flavor. I'm going to do what she suggests and put it into this bechamel sauce. And if you haven't seen that video on bechamel and the wonderful yet tragic story of Francois Vatel, I will make sure that that is the video that pops up after this one. And here we are, white ketchup from 1787. Okay, so before I try the ketchup in the bechamel, I'm going to try it just by itself. It actually smells really good. It's kind of sweet, which is weird because there's nothing in there that should make it sweet smelling. Bound to go bad. It's interesting. So it kind of looks like it should be like water, but it's a little bit thicker. Let's give it a shot. It's not sweet. Oh, yeah, that is not meant to be eaten alone. Whoa. Okay, besides the fact that it's super salty, it's like concentrated flavor. And I don't know what flavor. I really don't know what flavor, because I'm not tasting any specific flavor. It's all of them. It's really tangy, though. That's what I'm getting now. Wow. Blew out my buds. I'm gonna try the white sauce with a little bit mixed in, and it's just a very little bit, maybe like a half a teaspoon. Let's give this a shot. Now that is good. That's how it's supposed to be eaten. As she said, that is how it's supposed to be eaten. So when it's mixed with something kind of creamy and neutral, it adds this tangy zest, making it almost like a tartar sauce, but with like a weird umami, very savory note to it. That's very interesting, and I actually like it. I'm curious what it tastes like with a French fry, because that is how you're supposed to eat ketchup. Sure, that's kind of nice. So while I'm not going to be swapping it out for my beloved tomato ketchup, I do think it's pretty good. Granted, I wouldn't make it again. It's not good enough to go to all the trouble and the expense. It's very, very expensive ketchup, but it's a fun experiment. So make sure to go check out Tasting History, the cookbook, online, links in the description, and I will see you next time on Tasting History. So what was dinner?
As me, work very hard. You know, honestly, I should just become a feminist. It seems so much easier to just brush off all my faults as empowering. We have to work that long of a day because women also do the bulk of housework. Though the chores gap is shrinking. I'm sorry, the chore gaps? The chore gaps? The chore gaps! That was a real thing my eyes just read. Next. Men need to stop telling women to take a joke. I take jokes very seriously. If that's the case, you're doing it wrong. I don't love jokes just because I like to laugh. A good joke's first job is to make people feel a little better. Is it? Is it though? Women overwhelmingly seem to understand this. In general, when women tell a joke and their listener does not laugh, they are embarrassed. When men tell a joke and the listener does not laugh, they will repeat it in a louder voice. This doesn't sound like real human behavior. This sounds like a comedy bit. Hey, what? What's the difference between a dead baby and a Porsche? What? I don't have a Porsche in my garage. I don't have a Porsche in my garage! KFC announced its first female Colonel Sanders, and she's amazing. Finally! What a win for feminism! What a win for women everywhere! 2018 is really gonna be the year of, how is this not a parody? I love feminist reactions to this. We didn't ask for this. We just wanted equal pay. But I honestly like the conservative outrage way more. So KFC's Colonel Sanders is transgender now? These leftists and their cultural Marxism is out of control. They are determined to destroy the human race. Please never change, you absolute buffoon. Next. LGBTQ characters on television are still overwhelmingly white and male. There's this joke amongst anti-SJW types that you cannot please SJWs. You cannot please feminists. We have seen this time and time again. In fact, I made fun of it in like 2014.
There could be a fucking black, Mexican, Chinese, demisexual, lesbian, feminist otherkin in a wheelchair with no legs and shit. And these crybabies would still not be happy.
LGBTQ representation is yet one more area in which white men dominate. Well, here's some of that classic intersectional feminism we come to know and love. You're gay. That's cool. But you're white. Doesn't count. Also concerning is the persistent and ugly evil bisexual trope. Is it a trope if it's true? Heap eating is about to be your new favorite word. Yes, folks, heap eating. Why are we here? Just to suffer? Because nothing screams, it's about equality though, like more sexist terms meant to shame men for things women do as well. Honestly, I'm sorry that like most of these articles have to do with feminist shit. I didn't even mean for this to happen. This series was just supposed to find really cringy articles on Cosmo because they're like notorious for having terrible articles. This isn't even real feminism. This is what we in the shoe on head biz call BuzzFeed feminism. I think the feminists call this white feminism, but we're not gonna bring race into this because that's dumb. But all the stupidest and most terrible articles have to do with feminism shit. It's almost like there's a connection. Nicole something I can't pronounce tweeted the term heap-eating on Friday, defined as when a woman suggests an idea and it's ignored, but then a guy says the same thing and everyone loves it. You know what? I take back what I said about that other article, the one about men repeating jokes, because honestly, I could see that happening. I could see someone being that socially retarded. So yeah, Cosmo, I'll give you that. But this doesn't happen! This is a legit comedy trope. The trope is called Glad I Thought of It, and you've probably seen it dozens of times. Here's one example.
It's gonna get bigger. Maybe he'll be on our side. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Maybe he'll be... Hey, I got it. What if he's on our side?
Look at Timon, meerkat peeding. I'm sorry, I do not think someone exclaims an idea, is rejected, and then somebody else, seconds later, exclaims the same idea and is applauded for it. That is not how social interaction works. And when I am the one talking about how social interaction works, that's how you know things are bad. Next. Maybe don't dress your kid up as Moana this Halloween? So I saw this article being shared around during Halloween, and I told myself that I wasn't gonna read it until I do Cosmo Cringe episode 2. Well, I just read it! Oh, did I just read it! Halloween is just 2 weeks away, which means it's way past time to decide on a Halloween costume for your kid. Chances are, you have a child that's enamored with all things Disney and wants to be all of the princesses. All of them! Especially Moana. The New York Post recently highlighted an article on raceconscious.org about how that's probably not a good choice if your kid is white. The original article, written by Sachi Ferris, discusses how her white daughter was torn between dressing as Elsa from Frozen or the character from Moana. Ferris expresses concern that while an Elsa costume might reinforce notions of white privilege, dressing up as Moana is essentially cultural appropriation. Excuse me, ma'am, please shut 100% the fuck up. This is just like the absolute state of social justice. If I dress my kid as the white character, it reinforces white privilege. If I dress my kid as the brown character, it's cultural appropriation. The duality of man. What about all the little black girls who grew up when there was no black Disney princess? Were they culturally appropriating when they dressed up like Snow White or Cinderella? No! And neither is a white kid dressing like Moana. Disney makes movies like Moana to celebrate other cultures. So what the hell is even the point if we're not allowed to celebrate them? 17 shady things guys do that are as bad as cheating. Here we go. Here's some of that classic Cosmo cringe, that classic woman advice. Here's some of that thick cringe. He's only available at completely random times. So being a busy guy and having a set schedule is just as bad as cheating. Okay, honey. Or he spends all his time with you. What? How is spending a lot of time with your significant other just as bad as cheating? Being good friends and always wanting each other's company, that's as bad as cheating? He says I love you way too soon. Confessing his feelings for you is just as bad as cheating. I can't. Next. Quiz. Are these sex toys or kitchen tools? Oh lord. Okay. This could be either one. It looks like maybe an icing thing? Looks like an icing thing, so we're gonna keep it in the kitchen. Yes! Okay, this is definitely a kitchen tool. That is rather sharp. This might be like a masochist thing though. This keep it in the kitchen. Yes! What is that? Okay, this up here looks like it might like stimulate the clitori. This looks like salt though. Oh shit, is this a salt shaker? Yes! Okay, that looks like a turkey baster, but I don't know. This could be like a butt thing. Look, that's like bent a certain way. I don't know. I don't know. Let's go at. Oh! That is a sex toy. I don't know what this would. Oh, maybe it's. I think they're tricking me here. I think this is like to pick up things. This looks like a very modern picker-upper. So we're gonna. Oh! It's just a double-ended oh! This application form is the perfect way to screen potential boyfriends.
Live! Breaking news! Breaking news! A bitch is motherfucking single! You know what that means, niggas? Shoot your motherfucking shot, nigga! You know what? We're taking daddy applications tomorrow at 4 p.m., okay? Me and my bitches will be reviewing all of the applicants, okay? So guess what?
Okay, so she's single, she's looking for a daddy. Clearly she hasn't had much luck with men, so let's fill out this mommy application, shall we? Okay at cooking. Very good at crying. Exceptional. Eat the cookie dough raw. Have you ever been convicted of a criminal offense? If yes, please state the nature of the crime. Beat the puss too good. Went to jail. If you have a baby mama, when's the last time y'all fucked? Why should you be my dad? For the memes. And send. Okay, so that was that. I hope you guys liked it. Stay tuned for episode 3 as well as a whole bunch of other videos. Ollie, do you have any baby mamas? No, you don't. Because my stuffed animals can't get pregnant. See you guys next time. Here. Click one of these links. Fuck off. I'm trying to do like a freaking clickbait face, like that, but like I can't. I'm a failed YouTuber. Alright. Smoshed Shane Dawson up in heaven. Please grant me this clickbait face. Is that good? Jesus. Hello again, you putrid, disgusting animals. You waste of flesh and blood. Your father's greatest disappointment. You big gay babies. Welcome back to another episode of Why Cosmo Cringe, the series where I dig through mounds of terrible women's media to find gold nuggets for us to enjoy together. McDonald's is flipping its arches upside down for International Women's Day. Oh boy, do I love satire, but let's get to the real articles. This is not a joke. Oh. This is the real articles. For the first time in our brand history. Yes! Finally! I hear you now allow women in this establishment. We flipped our iconic arches for International Women's Day in honor of the extraordinary accomplishments of women everywhere. I was unaware that this whole time the M of McDonald's stood for men. McDonald's has not announced plans to make a donation as part of this initiative. Let's be real, this entire thing is literally a giant, very expensive virtue signal. This does absolutely nothing for women. What is it, women's awareness? Are you aware that women exist? Please ignore us capitalizing on the obesity epidemic. Please ignore how terrible we treat our employees. Look over there! W for women! Big next. 10 totally invalid complaints men should not be allowed to have. Leave the shoe complaints at the door. Well, okay. Oh, it's written by our girl, Hannah Smothers. That's how you know it's gonna be just terrible. Number 1, my shoes are hurting me. I see you in those boat shoes, my dude. That tiny blister on the back of your heel from those loafers don't hold a candle to the 12 blisters I have on my big toe alone from these strappy sandals. Don't you hate when the patriarchy bursts through your bedroom door, holds you down, and forces you to put on strappy sandals? I mean, it's not like they literally make boat shoes for women too. It's not like fashion is literally a choice. Unless you're a Muslim woman in a Muslim country, where it's not really a choice. We went a little dark and serious there. Let's bring it back to strappy sandals. 2. I won't have enough time to get ready. Thanks to some really fun gender beauty standards, all men have to do to get ready is run a little comb through their hair and change t-shirts or something. This is the same as the last point. This makes no sense. Like, oh, you need time to get ready? But I need more time. Checkmate, you can't complain. I hate this haircut. Something I will literally never understand is why haircuts cause men such distress. Their hair grows back so fast, and they never actually look any different. One of the most stereotypical complaints that women have is that men don't notice when they change their hair. And here you are, saying that you don't notice when men change their hair. This is hilarious. I love my job. I am so happy that I dropped out of college. 4. I don't want to shave. It takes too long. In the time it takes for you to shave all the little stubble patch on your cheeks, I'll have done maybe 1/8 of my leg. I'm sorry, but I think shaving a face takes like way more concentration than shaving legs. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's why my shower floor looks like the scene from Psycho often. 5. My parents won't stop nagging me about kids. It's so annoying. Even when I'm 27 left swipes into a Tinder spree on a Sunday night, my mom still asks when she's getting grandkids. This is one of those things women feel so much more pressure about, and if I hear any more nonsense about my biological clock, I will scream. Don't talk about the biological clock or Hannah will scream! I like how most of these are like, yeah, that happens to you, but it also happens to me. Also, get off Tinder, Hannah. Every article you ever do, you complain about Tinder. It's clearly not working out for you. 7. Ugh, but condoms don't feel as good. Gonna start invoicing you for my birth control pills and occasionally yelling, "Are you sure you're not pregnant?" at you in your sleep. Lol. Is this humor? Everyone stares at me while I'm at the gym. It's so irritating. I can't count the amount of times I've done jumping jacks or jump rope facing an ugly wall because I catch some dude watching my boobs bounce from across the room. Is this some like weird humble brag? I just go to the gym and like men watch my titties bounce. What? I agree with this though. Don't look at me while I'm at the gym. Don't talk to me. Do not breathe in my general direction. Okay, so this whole article is just women have this problem too, so men can't complain about it. Next. What his favorite pizza topping says about how likely he is to cheat. Hannah! I swear to God, this woman single-handedly runs a cringe empire. Which pizza topping does your guy like most? He likes all of these. Canadian bacon. He is Canadian. But he does like peppers. And that's the most unique out of all of these, so I'm gonna go with that. He's probably cheating on you right now.
Hello?
Who is she?
What?
Who is she?
What are you talking
You're
about?
cheating on me.
No.
You are cheating on me. Listen, you like green peppers on your pizza, therefore you are cheating on me, so who is she?
Ooh, I love green peppers on this.
This Tumblr post about Wonder Woman's thighs is going viral for the most amazing reason. It's fantastic and freeing to watch a movie shot that's not shot from the male gaze. Ah yes, those male gaze. When Diana did the superhero landing, her thigh jiggled on screen. Did you hear me? Her thigh fucking jiggled. Wonder Woman's thigh jiggled on a 20-foot tall screen in front of everyone because she wasn't there to make men drool. Oh yes! Jiggling fat. Men totally aren't into that. Her voluptuous, strong thigh jiggle. Take that, men! Male gaze destroyed. I used feminist quotes on a dating app and this is what happened. Oh, fun! Hello, beautiful. Who run the world? The lions. Not according to Beyonce. What are you talking about? Same, dude. Hey, how are you, babe? I'm tough, I'm ambitious, and I know exactly what I want. How are you? Cool. I'm good at bloody work. And what do you want? Equality of the sexes. Okay, and how you want be this equality? Oh, fuck. We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. And who held you? The patriarchy. Same. Apologize on behalf of men out there. Somebody's getting laid. I love this like male feminist mating call of I hate myself. You didn't do anything just being born male. Stop feeling so guilty about yourself. I'm never like, oh, I hate being a woman because Hannah Smothers wrote a shit article. Feminist and feeling flirty? Download Badoo, the biggest dating app in the world. Oh, this was just an ad for a feminist dating app. Great. I've been bamboozled. So, apparently, straight men prefer their bromances to their girlfriends. Young straight men get more emotional satisfaction from their close male friendships than their romantic partners. Robots are replacing sex, bros are replacing emotional connection, women are obsolete. The men also reported feeling less judged by their close male friends than by their girlfriends. Sounds like fragile masculinity to us. What? Their girlfriends are judging them unfairly and that's somehow fragile masculinity? I thought for a split second that this article was gonna be positive about men having close relationships with other men. But nope, I can't go on. I can't go on. I'm getting too old for this. I need to lay down. Ella, can you please take over? Thank you.
Oh, hi, didn't see you there. Yes, hi, hello. My name's Ella Grant, and I'm just your favorite run-of-the-mill ginger trap from Alberta. So when Shu reached out to me, asking if I wanted to feature in one of these videos, I was just something along the lines of, hey mom, I made it, I'm famous. I thought I disowned you. So, ladies and gents, buckle your seatbelt, take off your gorgeous pink satin coat, clutch your pearls, because it's cringe o'clock and I'm a little scared, not gonna lie. Well, guess I'll die. Okay. Let's just pull up the link. That is a vagina. Vaginas are fucking weird, man. I don't really know how accurate of a depiction of a vagina that is. Because I don't have one. So let's just keep reading here. This realistic vagina manicure is quite something. That it is. Nail artist Asa Brie has graced the internet with a gift. It's a glittery purple gel manicure with one accent nail on each hand, and that accent just so happens to be an alarmingly realistic depiction of a vagina. Bitch, what the fuck? Alarming is an appropriate adjective for this manicure. Is it bad that I can see Justin Trudeau wearing these nails? painted lovingly with 5 distinct shades of pink and topped with a pearl. Is the nail salon literally called Finger Bang? Oh my god, of course it's in. And it is indeed realistic. I actually don't know if I'm gonna have to censor this, because I don't want this video to get demonetized. Monetization. Why? Who has that anymore? That's crazy. Monetization? I've heard that for years. Even if it's a depiction of nature, this manicure is just objectively tacky. I can imagine that there's ways to make vaginas on your hand aesthetically pleasing. Come on, purple glitter? She's been working regularly with her client, T. Is it racist that I don't know how to say that last name? Asa's manicures literally deserve their own museum exhibit. That's how gorgeous they are. Bitch, is you blind? Check out more of her non-genitalia inspired designs below. Okay, let's look at fake news. Fake news. And this is an article that was originally published by BuzzFeed, so I'm just gonna leave that there. Honestly, these nails just make me sad. Body positivity, am I right, folks? Is this cameo appearance really over? Nah, not so fast. I'm just gonna give me some shameless self-promo here. And also show off this matching hat. Look at this! Anyways, I don't want this little cameo to be over, but I really do have some more pressing business I need to attend to. How to give yourself a lobotomy to get out of finals.
I'm just here to hold your hand when you die and to show you around imaginary places. But the money loves and blind money stuff. And the bull have a smile, there's a perfect circle. Die in your sleep with a sky at your feet. I'll shoot you when you're happy all day, then you will find peace. How did you do? I don't know, I'm okay. Every person I know is a secret story agent. Cause I'm accused of blue content. Stole the hard to rape from prom side. And I got a rumor from the rest of put me in the living in the funny farm. Cause I'm what I did.
God has allowed me to live for one more day, and I'm going to make it your problem. So I found a thing, and I must tell you about the thing. When I see a thing, you gotta see a thing. That is the rules, that is what you signed up for when you hit subscribe. That and also like one video a month, but we can't always get what we want now, can we? Now some of you might actually already know about this, but I just discovered it sort of recently, and I really wanted to talk about it. Prostasia, a website dedicated to the protection of children. Sounds great, right? Who would be against a website dedicated to protecting children? What is wrong with you, Shu? Well, many things. However, when you first look at the website, it looks like a good thing. But the more you read, the more you go, Now, before we get started, everything I'm going to say here is alleged. I'm not making any statements. This is based off of things on the website. This is based off of things I have read with my own 2 eyes. So if you have an issue, take it up with my lawyer. Okay, with that out of the way, 3, 2, 1. Recently, Prostasia created a Mac support group. So if you don't know what a Mac is, I have a plethora of videos about Macs. I will link the things below. But a Mac is a minor attracted person. It is a politically correct term. So yes, this organization is using the word Mac. We went from maps being a niche Tumblr thing that people sort of laughed off as a joke to this in 4 years. But put a pin in this because we will be unfortunately coming back to the Mac support group later on in this video. So Prostasia believes the best way to prevent child abuse, the solution to pedophilia, is acceptance and normalization. Now I personally believe there are several different solutions to pedophilia. 9mm, 20mm, 40mm. I'm just kidding. If this was a website, if this was an organization actually devoted to like helping these people get therapy, helping them get set up with real therapists, I wouldn't care. That would be great. That is what we want. Like, we want these people, like, you know, sort of away from society. We want them away from children and getting help. But this ain't that. This ain't that. You see, Prostasia is not recognized by the US government as a child protection organization. There are no professionals, professional therapists, whatsoever. Professionals who work in child protective services and childwelfare.gov does not list them anywhere in their thousands and thousands of child protective organizations. But despite all of that, it's literally tax exempted. It is a tax exempted pedophile club. So it's a church. Catholic families not going to like that. Just kidding. I love Jesus Christ. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, give us a day and daily bread. Forgive us of those trespassers. In July 2019, PayPal ceased its relationship with Prostasia because it apparently violated policy on transactions involving, encouraging, promoting, facilitating, or instructing others to engage in illegal activity. A little sus. Now, all over their website are words like free speech and sex positivity. Like, they recently had some webinar, and I'm not even joking, this is what it was called. Prostasia tries really hard to roleplay as this, like, hip, modern, inclusive organization. But at the end of the day, they're just another NAMBLA. They're just another Lincoln project. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, Shu, this isn't that bad. You know, maybe their heart is in the right place. Keep watching. An advisor to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection had to say this about Prostasia. Are there any Prostasia campaigns that don't undermine online child protection? They claim to be a child protection board, but it's hard to find an issue where they err on the side of actual child protection. Prostasia doesn't have a victim focus, full stop. The goals of Prostasia is very clearly to protect the feelings of grown-ass adults. That is their top priority. They have other priorities. Another thing they advocate for is the legalization of drawn CP. Now, I don't really know where I stand on this. Drawings are not real. Just like fantasy or roleplay or whatever, nobody's getting hurt, and the main concern is children being hurt or exploited. Whether looking at material like that is harmful, that's like a whole different debate, a whole different video. But like, look, I can literally draw a stick figure right now. Ready? Let's give her big numbers. There we go. Awooga, right? Well, she's under 18. There are federal agents at your door. But another battle they are fighting is for the legalization of child sex dolls. Recently, some mother had to fight to get a doll removed from being sold because it was based on her 8-year-old daughter. And another focus of theirs, and I'm not joking, is to abolish the sex offender registry. Now, why would Prostasia want to abolish sex offender registry? Well, let's talk about who runs Prostasia, shall we? Who is behind this organization? In May 2020, somebody asked the founder of Prostasia, Jeremy Malcolm, if they accepted self-admitted pedophiles as volunteers. Jeremy Malcolm replied, "We don't make a policy of asking people about their sexuality before they are allowed to volunteer." Their sexuality. Right. The Council of Rules consists of convicted sex offender Guy Hamilton. And they also had convicted sex offender Jeff White on board for a while. So I think we figured out why they want to get rid of the sex offender registry. By the way, when a family lawyer called into question Jeff White's sketchy history of, you know, child diddling, the family lawyer received threats from Jeremy Malcolm, the founder, that basically said, "You leave us alone, we'll leave you alone." Capiche? And after that, they apparently stopped disclosing who works for them. They stopped disclosing the staff. It's a big mystery. It's nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with sexuality. Children can be male or female. Pedophiles can be straight, gay, bi, as the CEO of bisexual. But like, I know this is a weak comparison, but seriously, this would be like making any one of my sick fetishes part of the LGBTQ alphabet. Like, yeah guys, we need to add S to LGBT. Lesbian, gay, bi, trans, spit in my mouth. It's not how that works.
You can't sit with us!
But they also had a nice woman named Sheila who worked with them for a little while, and she had this to say on Christmas, December 2019. Merry Christmas to everyone, including the Nepiophiles, pedophiles, hebephiles, and ebahebephiles who have to put up with people like blank virtue signaling and perpetuating stigma every single day of the year. Now, if you are a normal person, and therefore you do not know what a Nepiophile is, a Nepiophile is someone who is attracted to babies. Hold on one second. So where does their funding come from? Well, cryptocurrency. Of course, but also get this. Amazon Smile. You could literally select them as a charity on Amazon. So while I was doing my sleuthing around at 4 a.m. like a f***ing freak, high off adrenaline, just absolutely on my QAnon grind, I actually found the director of the organization. Meet Noah Berlatsky, the main character of this story. Now, our friend Noah has some interesting takes. Pedophiles are essentially a stigmatized group. Certain people get designated as deviants. People hate them. Yes? And parents are tyrants. Parent is an oppressive class, like rich people or white people. He also wrote a few blogs on the Prostasia website. Child sex workers' biggest threat, the police. Okay, let's back up for a second. There's no such thing as a child sex worker, Noah. That's called a human trafficking victim. This one is called The Science Behind Adolescent Autonomy. Should a 15-year-old be able to vote? Should a 13-year-old be able to decide when to go to bed? Should a 16-year-old be able to decide to sex with their significant other? Should a 12-year-old be allowed to choose what to eat and what not to eat for dinner? Rather than outsourcing our ethics and ill-informed readings of neuroscience data, we need to acknowledge that the real corrupter of judgment, of kindness, of tolerance, is power. If we refuse to let young people advocate for themselves, or refuse to grant them bodily autonomy, it is not because there is something wrong with their decision-making capacity, it is because there is something wrong with ours. Therefore, let me touch your children. Idiot. He's getting there. The echo chamber of alt-right conspiracy theorists and sexual conservatives who wield the stigma around pedophilia as a potent weapon to undermine the progress of the LGBT movement. So it is true that years ago, and still today, it was used to fearmonger about gay people. And all gay people aren't pedophiles, obviously. But here's the flaw in what you said. You are. Wow, look at all these crazy conservatives calling the LGBT community pedophiles. Isn't that fucked up? funny to me. Then I was thinking to myself, why does this Noah dude's account look so familiar? Turns out, he's the fucking journalist who got mad at me like a year ago for criticizing the Netflix movie Cuties. Audiences hate it because there's a moral panic right-wing campaign targeting it, fueled in part by racism and sexism directed at a black woman filmmaker. Wrong.